Welcome. Welcome to the Indivisible Twin Cities member meeting. We're going to get started maybe in a minute or two. In the meantime, you can put your name and where you're calling in from in the chat. Just say hello. That would be great. And we'll just wait 1 minute before we get started. And if you feel like it, we always talk about the weather here. You can say what the weather's like wherever you are. It's cloudy and rainy in Minneapolis.
Throw open the windows tonight. Let the fresh air come on in.
And Anat, you're in California and it's probably warm and sunny, right?
Unfortunately, yes, that's just how
It's
it is.
okay.
Today was unseasonably hot for us. I think it got to like 78, and everyone here is very upset, maybe 80. The Bay
Oh,
Area is basically always 50 to 75, and
yeah.
if anything different happens, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
people can't deal.
yes, my Wisconsin family calls us West Coast wimps.
Yeah. I think the coldest I've ever been was in San Francisco. I
That's
swear.
true also, but I don't live in San Francisco. I live
Oh,
on the other side of
oh,
the,
you're on the other side. Okay.
yeah.
Okay, I think people are still joining. You think we should get started?
Yeah, I think
Okay, it's
so.
7:03. Okay. Um,
We need to,
Jordan, you want to share,
Yeah.
and then somebody else is going to admit people into the waiting room. Okay, good. All right. Welcome again, everybody. And if you're just joining, please put your name and where you're calling in from in the chat. My name is Rebecca Larson. I'm one of the co-leaders of Indivisible Twin Cities, along with Lisa Herbs, who she'll be sharing with you also this evening. We'll be kind of co-facilitating. Um, we're really glad to have you here for our roughly, every 5 week um, all member meeting. Our last one was actually in person. It was great. I hope some of you were able to join us at the Hook and Ladder in Minneapolis. It was a lot of fun. But then we alternate with virtual meetings, which works too, because then people can join from all over, including our special guest, who I will announce in a little bit, who's calling in from California. On the next slide. Actually, I need to mention, we printed this graphic into lawn signs. So if you want a one, let us know. And you can send an email to info@indivisibletwincities.org. We had one batch and we got rid of them so fast, we printed up another one. And we'll also be we'll be mentioning this in our newsletter too. Okay, next slide. Our agenda for tonight is we'll just do a quick welcome. Then we have a special guest, Anat Shenker-Osorio, who I will introduce in a little bit. We have some time for Q&A. And then we're going to spend some time talking about our work that is in front of us for the summer and into election season. And then we'll talk about some next steps, how you can get involved, and we will wrap up by 8:15. Okay, next one. This is our mission. I don't need to read that, but it's about all the good things that we're about. Next slide. So we're not going to spend a ton of time on this right now, but I wanted to just set the stage a little bit for what our two main strategies are going to be this election season. And then after Anat is done, we're going to go into more detail about this. So we have two main work streams or task forces or strategies. The first one is campaigning for shorthand, where we'll be directly supporting specific political campaigns and people, candidates who reflect our values and who are willing to fight for our democracy, two main criteria. And then the second is mobilizing and catalyzing all of our members to defend the election through civic action. And so we're working through our plans on those. We're recruiting volunteers for both of these work streams, and we'll talk about that more toward the end of the meeting. But just keep that in mind as Anat is speaking, because I think these things will all really blend together nicely. So with that, I want to introduce Anat Shenker-Osorio. She is the host of the Words to Win By podcast and principal of ASO Communications. She is our messaging guru, and I'm sure a lot of you have been on calls with her in the past or read her Substack article or even the chapter in this book, which we all love, called The Persuaders, where she was interviewed by the author, and I highly recommend that if you want to pick it up. She leads research for new messaging on issues ranging from freedom to clean energy, to immigrant rights, to criminal justice reform. She has deep ties to Minnesota. And we got to know Anat a little bit during the surge when we called her up. She took our phone call because we wanted to talk about some messaging challenges we were having related to the occupation of our cities. So we are so happy that you are with us today, Anat. And as her website declares, she presents findings packed in snark, and we are here for the snark. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Anat. Thank you so much for being here. And yeah, turning it over. So I think you're going to share some slides.
Yes. I think I just got permission, so
Okay.
that's going to happen. All right. Good evening. It is the last day of school for my middle schooler, and he does not know I'm doing a presentation at 5 Pacific, so he may walk in at any moment. Be a very exciting cameo from Diego. Apologies in advance if that happens. So, when we talked about what I could talk about, the list was endless, and hopefully you all have places to be and things to do. So we decided to focus in on a body of research and messaging guidance that we completed. I completed with colleagues and have been making a bit of a roadshow, and that is really the election fuckery. So that is the technical terminology. That is what political scientists, I'm just kidding, are calling it. But this is basically how we talk about the election, not in the sort of GOTV sense, but in the all of the shenanigans that they are doing in all sorts of places. So, of course, we know that we are confronting a challenge. We know that there will be elections in 2026. Sometimes people on social media like to say things like, they're just going to cancel the elections. Authoritarians need elections. We are technically speaking in competitive authoritarianism. That is what scholars call the form of government that we exist in right now. It means that the formal trappings of democracy, very much including elections, are still there, but that the ruling party routinely and strategically breaks and reshapes the rules for how those things take place. They need elections. Elections are what give them plausible deniability that they are ruling on behalf of we the people. And so what they try to do, and this is really important, is they try to make sure that those elections act as a vehicle for them to seize and hold on to power so that they are conducted in ways that benefit them. A lot of the election protection work that people are accustomed to thinking about is let's party like it's 2020. It's not 2020. There are many things. Procrastinators is not one of them. They are not going to wait for the election to try to fuck with the election. So they are already putting things into place. And my fear in having done this roadshow a little bit in a bunch of places is what people are doing is like, well, in late October, we're going to do this thing, or in November, we're going to do this thing, or this is our plan to protect the count. Yeah, sure. But also, they're already on it. So this is a checklist of things that are already happening right now. They're, getting far down the checklist. We'll see how far they make it. And obviously, Minnesota has been a site of this with the threats to seize your ballots as part of what I would not call a surge, I would call a siege of your state. So we also know that the opposition is not just printing out press releases or doing a social media post here. They are full surround sound. And in fact, the reason why they do horrific things like send militarized agents into our cities, including your own, is in order to prove that our cities are lawless hellscapes that require the military. That too is part of their narrative. Because if they are promising their base, we will protect you from the, equal parts kombucha drinking and Antifa hellscape that is Oakland or Minneapolis or St. Paul or Portland or whatever, then they actually do need to send troops. Otherwise, they're lying about the story, or they're not actually going to move in to protect you. So they make their narrative be real in every possible way, including through their actions. And so, what that means is that we need to have a response that's commensurate and recognize that a message is like a baton that has to be passed from person to person to person. And this is the least controversial thing I say, but for some reason, the hardest for people to internalize. A message that nobody hears cannot persuade them. A message that nobody hears is silence. And so there are many groups, especially in the voting rights space, that want to come up with some carefully calibrated, perfectly non-offensive milquetoast thing to say, which is the equivalent of saying nothing. Because no one will hear it. And so, good job putting it in 37 different polls and measuring convincingness. The message has to first get people to stop scrolling. And if it doesn't do that, it doesn't actually matter what it is. So, a message is like a baton. And that means that instead of poo-pooing and saying you're just preaching to the choir, we need to remember that the choir is where the trouble starts. And if the choir will not sing from the songbook, the congregation is not going to hear the joyful noise and convert the conflicted. This is something that the right understands very well. They have never conducted a survey and been like, oh, the things we are saying are very off-putting and deeply offensive to most of middle America. They see that and then they're like, let's say it a whole bunch. And I am not telling you that we are the same as them. We are not. But they understand that if you don't have in their situation a red MAGA hat army, that then that message isn't penetrating through. Of course, there is not enough of our base. We also have to convert the conflicted. This is where we have been fed a false story. We have been told that these people are moderates or middle of the road. That implies that they have a position. In fact, what these people are, I call them the good point people because they're like this. Good point. But yeah, good point. But also, good point. So these are people who believe, yeah, maybe there is fraud and maybe there are shenanigans happening and maybe people are voting illegally. And also, we should not make it so that it is more difficult to vote and probably MAGA is trying to cook the books. And they believe those things, maybe not at the exact same second, but they're susceptible to both stories. And that is most voters. Most voters are conflicted. And so it is our job to toggle them into the truth and to hold them there. And then, of course, there are people who are just never going to agree with us, and to them, we should not be speaking. So the goal here with the research that we conducted that informs the messaging advice is to construct a narrative that inoculates fraud-curious voters, these are these susceptible, to increase the belief that more people voting is good, to diminish the potency among the fraud certain. These are the people lost to us. They're in the QAnon hole, but we want them to not keep saying that to other people. We want them to sort of feel despondent and just accept the results, right? And we want to electoralize the election. What do I mean by that? We want to make sure that the attempts to keep people from voting, keep votes from counting, actually make people want to vote more. As an act of defiance, we want to like get the fuck you out of them, right? We want to like, so these were the goals of the research. We did a lot of research. I'm sharing only some of it. The first top line thing I want to tell you is that far from conventional wisdom, which is if we tell folks about these efforts that they're doing, it will demobilize them, the data don't support that. What we find is that talking about the anti-voter agenda helps the pro-voter cause. So here what we are showing is that after folks in a survey have seen they want to do this, they want to do that, they want to do this, they want to do that, our base, which is that top row, people who understand that the only thing that really endangers elections is when people are prevented from voting, they report they're much more motivated to engage or a little bit more motivated. You can see almost none of them are that sort of pink salmon-y color. They became less motivated. Either it makes no difference or it increases their motivation. The exposure to the anti-voter agenda also either increases or stays the same within margin of error, their desire to convince other people to vote. We ask this in lieu of vote yourself. I'm going to vote is the I will pay you tomorrow of public opinion research. It is the thing people lie about most consistently. Every survey you're ever going to see, 90% of people, 95, 98% of people are like, I'm absolutely going to vote. Minnesota, as you know, is our highest voter participation state. You have never seen 90. There is not an election in which 90% of eligible people vote. So some of those people are full of it, and they're not even full of it. They think they mean it. When they say it, they mean it. They just don't do it. So that's why we ask, motivate other people. So the messaging lesson from that is that naming the anti-voter agenda helps persuade and mobilize. The next place we're going in the top lines is that we need to make things tangible. So when we ask folks, here are some reasons people have given why voting in elections are important. What are the two that most captured? That top one is voting lets us play a role in the decisions that impact our lives, not democracy, not, patriotic duty, not equal say, but impact our lives, the decisions that impact our lives. We asked a line of questioning around eligible people being prevented from voting. And what you can see is that, yes, it is concerning to people, obviously to Democrats in particular, that eligible people are being prevented from voting. So that's good. We also find that when we describe all of the machinations that Trump and Republicans plan, the one that garners the strongest reaction, top left, is prohibiting American citizen civilians living abroad, such as students, diplomatic, from voting. Now, why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because of all of the policies that they've either done or are planning on doing, the rest of them are kind of abstract to people, requiring proof of citizenship, a hand count, anyone who has changed their name. All of these restrictions should telegraph to voters, oh, they're going to keep people from voting, but they don't. The only thing that conveys to voters they're going to keep people from voting is literally saying they're going to keep people from voting. If you say they're going to get rid of vote by mail, if you say they're going to do fewer hours, if you say they're going to purge voter rolls, to you, that means they're going to keep people from voting. That does not mean that to the average voter. Do not take your policy out in public. It is unseemly. Do not take their policy out in public. Their policy is not a message. So the entry that got the highest notice is the only one that is about keeping people from voting. Now, some people look at this and they're like, oh, that's because people are concerned about the military. We deliberately did not include the military. They're not concerned about the military. And I also don't think this is because people are so into expats. This is because this is the only entry that says prohibiting people from voting. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay. So Americans are actually most concerned about the racialized impacts of this. Sometimes people will tell you, don't talk about race. That is dumb. Our problems are, especially in this arena and in many others, about, in particular, keeping Black people from voting. That is why they are doing what they are doing. As you know, keeping young people, keeping new Americans from voting, that is the deal. And we're not getting anywhere if we're not going to tell the truth about what's going on. It's also very concerning that people with disabilities are going to be kept from voting. That was particularly true with the center-right groups. That was sort of a locus of their concern. Now, some people like to try to beat the opposition by repeating the opposition. This is a fetish. I don't know. I think it stems from being band geeks and wanting to sit at the jocks table. And maybe if we talk to the jocks in the jock way, they'll finally like us. I'm not sure the psychology of it. But when we talk about election security, this will not make our election secure, or we also want election security. Election security is achieved by blah, blah, blah. When we try to have their conversation in order to win our thing, we don't. So the reason I'm showing this to you is that, yes, making sure our elections are secure is a thing people want. In particular, it's a thing Republicans want. And so it can seem tempting. Anat, that's the top row. Don't you know math? I'm actually quite good at math. I'm a pollster. I'm saying that the fact that this is so popular is actually a problem, because what security framing does is it primes a desire for more crackdown. So the fact that people really want secure elections means to them, we know in practice, yeah, you're right. We should have voter ID. You're right. We should make people prove citizenship. Yeah, you're right. We should. So it's not that security isn't popular, it's that it is, and it sends people into the wrong direction. Hopefully that makes sense. Great. Okay. So the messaging lesson is avoid abstractions, don't talk about their policies. People are being blocked from voting. They are keeping people from voting. That's it. They're keeping people from voting. We want to name the electoral consequences. So I showed you the top row finding here. I'm showing it to you again for a particular purpose. We asked, how concerned are you about eligible Americans being prevented? There are the numbers, 49% in the aggregate, 67 among Democrats, etc. We also asked, how concerned are you about voter fraud, about illegal people voting? You can see that 11 in this wording, we worded it differently. We retested it. We got the same result by using the most hot, heated, illegal voting fraud. 11% more people in the aggregate are concerned about prevention than they are about this make-believe non-problem of people who shouldn't be voting. So that's good. And then here is where it falls apart. So where it falls apart is we also asked this thing, do you think it has the potential to change the outcomes of elections? You saw a second ago, we were 11 points ahead of them, 49-38. Now we are 5 points behind them. So that is a 16-point drop. 5% more people think that voter fraud, illegal voting, changes election outcomes, and only 25% thinks preventing people from voting could change electoral outcomes. So this is our big plot hole, and it is why the messaging advice I'm about to give you exists. They have been arguing forever and ever and ever, bad stuff is happening, meaning fraud, illegal voting, and it results in us stealing elections. Bad thing is happening, there is a consequence. Our side has been saying in other states, they're going to do a voter suppression. They're going to do a voter suppression. They're going to do a voter suppression. And then they do it. And then we say, in America, we have free and fair elections. Our elections are the envy of the world. We're a democracy in our democratic elections. So we're like, they're going to do a thing. They're going to do a thing. They're going to do a thing. They do the thing. And then we're like, our elections are amazing. So we have a plot hole in which we do not talk about the fact that the things that they do have a consequence. And while we want to believe that keeping people from voting is enough of a consequence, it's not. It's not. It has to be they're keeping people from voting so they can change the outcomes of elections. Does that make sense? That's what I mean by consequence. And in fact, what we find in newer research, this is an amalgam across a lot of surveys that we've done. Too few people connect their anti-voter actions to voter-related outcomes. So here we're asking, to what degree do you believe the following voting policies might or might not prevent eligible Americans from voting? And the numbers are the percent of people who say it would prevent many people or prevent some people together, right? Removing eligible voters from the voter rolls. Only 56% of people think that would prevent people from voting. That's literally preventing people from voting. Ending vote by mail. 49%, half the samples. Like, even only 63% of Democrats think that ending vote by mail would keep people from voting. So, like, this, I know I'm hammering this. I'm also teaching you that repetition is important by being repetitive. We got a plot hole, friends, plot hole. We like to talk about policy and we are trying to make policy be the message, and it's just not. Fewer still see how preventing people from voting, from taking the actions that they want, actually impacts outcomes. So here we're asking, Trump and MAGA have proposed a number of actions and policy changes, regardless of whether you believe they're going to happen or not. How likely do you think it is each of these, if enacted, could change election outcomes? And what you can see is, like, it's barely registering, right? So the federal government takes control of running elections, blocking states from doing so. 29% of people would be like, yeah, that could possibly change outcomes. Did you think I was here for a nice time? Sorry, I should have come with a warning label. So the messaging lesson is, be explicit that changes to process can alter electoral outcomes. And then we need to say not just what they're doing, but why. So again, when we try to argue by just exposing people to their proposals, just around a third, just over a third or fewer Americans think that these are a good example talking points of MAGA being engaged in fuckery. There's a lot going on with this question. For time's sake, you can ask me, but I'm not going to explain all of it. Kicking millions of eligible Americans off the voter rolls, only 39% of people think that that is like a good proof point, illustration of like they're up to something no good, right? Even labels that are really important to us, like the Voting Rights Act, most people have not heard of it. So I hate to tell you, but this is the United States. So policy descriptions are not messages. Power across our focus groups, we did 15 of them in the lead up to this research, really popped as why. Why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? Power, 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 power. We also oftentimes hear control. They want to control us. They want to decide our futures for us. They want to be in control. Oh, my voice came back at me for some reason. Power dominates. So we asked some this is where we asked folks which one of these descriptors is the most accurate for what they're up to with these proposals. And you can see there's not a ton behind any of them. None are accurate descriptions is obviously where all of the opposition clustered because they only had one choice. The reason why there's not high numbers in any of these is because we gave them a lot of options. We give a lot of options, you get distribution. But the one that got the most was they're doing it. The description of what they're doing is that they want to lock themselves in power. So again, that power word. So the messaging lesson here is that the story is they want to keep people from voting so they can control the outcomes of elections to seize and hold power. Those are the three parts. Next, we want to solve for the right problem. I'm almost done. And that is people actually believing that this can come true. So what you're seeing here is an XY plot on the horizontal x-axis. This is level of opposition to the policy from I don't oppose it at all to 75%, 100% would be total opposition. And on the y-axis, the vertical axis, you're seeing how likely do you think this is actually going to happen? And I want you to note that the top line here is 50%. It's not 100. So 50% of people, just under, believe that they are going to redraw congressional district lines so they favor Republicans. And they already had when we asked this. So we call this the credulity chasm. It is something we face all the time. We think our job is we need people to understand that their policies are bad. Oftentimes, our job is we need people to believe that they're actually going to do it. Even things they already did. I know. It sucks to have to be presented with data. I would like our samples to be of Canadians, but none of my colleagues allow this. So grab and hold power again was our best proof point that yeah, they're really going to do it. Like our best solve for the credulity chasm is because they want power. So the messaging lesson is that we need to make the most reviled changes seem likely to happen and the most likely to happen to people seem the most vile. Many, on a happy note, are primed to take action. This is from recent data. People are taking various actions to push back against measures that could prevent eligible voters from casting their ballots. How likely are you to participate? Obviously, the top one is voting in primaries, but these are pretty good numbers relative to when we ask about actions. And of course, people are, telling us what they intend to do, not what they actually will do. But there's a bunch of stuff that we are sort of proposing to people, and they are somewhat primed to do it. So let me leave off with the narrative summary. Don't fear speaking out about the agenda. We do not find evidence that it is demobilizing. You need to make it tangible, not abstract. You want to name not just what they're doing, but that it's going to have an outcome and that it has a motivation. That motivation is power, and you want to solve for the right problem. So that brings us to a narrative frame. This is sort of the order in which we're going to talk. We're going to seize the moral high ground because we're team heroes, team good people. We're going to talk about how they want to prevent people from voting, not end vote by mail, not change the voter rolls, not their policy, but they're going to keep people from voting so they can try to control outcomes of elections to seize and hold power. That's what I mean by motivation. And then whatever the CTA is that we have for them. We want to replace habituated phrases. Yes, that includes free and fair elections. This is a tough one for everyone in the voting rights space. First of all, we don't have free and fair elections. Happy to tell you why. And also, fair is a contested concept. It is in the eye of the beholder. For a lot of people, fair is, they say, if an illegal person votes, that's not fair because it cancels out a legitimate ballot. That's not fair. So when we talk about fair elections, to some people, that means making all of these restrictions. So we want to talk about free and democratic elections. Democratic is less contested. Democratic has more of a sense that more people participating is good. I told you why security does not help us. When I talk about how voting is how we impact our lives, as opposed to voting is about democracy, duty, having an equal say, the SAVE Act, to the extent that this is still relevant, that sounds good to people. We should have learned this lesson from Patriot Act and Citizens United. There's no reason to call the thing they want it called. Then you're anti-Save America, then you're anti the Patriot Act, then you're anti-Citizens United. That was all a very silly thing to do. It's a voter elimination act. That's what it's for. We want to talk about how most Americans want every eligible voter to vote. People actually do want more people voting. That's a true story. Voters should pick our leaders. Our leaders should not pick their voters. That is a line that we've been using since 2020. It does very well. Instead of these other things, don't worry, you're going to get this deck. You're going to get the handout that has all of this in it. Want to keep people from voting as opposed to abstractions like voter suppression or silence our voices and vote by mail, etc. They want to control the results. They want to declare themselves the winners no matter what, as opposed to they want to erode our democracy or undermine our elections. They're doing it to seize and hold power as opposed to saying nothing about their motivation. Where this leaves us is hands off our, to speak Minnesotan, neighbors, hands off our communities, hands off our lives, hands off our freedoms, and hands off our vote. These are some examples of hands off our vote out in the world. As I said, I've been on a bit of a tour. This is from the All Roads Lead South, which hopefully you saw. These are some ideas for calls to action. There need to be many, many more things we can be asking of people right now. It's actually extraordinarily important that people be attending their Board of Elections meeting. This is the least sexy thing, but it is very important. Right now, the only kinds of people who attend boards of elections are people who are caught up in the fraud, fraud, fraud story, and they attend them in order to harass the election officials. There has to be a countervailing voice that is like, thank you so much, election officials. Like, we support you. Also, it's a muscle. We got to get people doing this now so that come time, if something goes down somewhere, people are already poised and at the ready. And with that, that's it. I don't actually know if we're doing Q&A. That was what I was going to ask at the top, but yes, that is the presentation.
Thank you, Anat. We did have a couple of questions in the chat, and let's see, I was trying to keep track of them. So Julie asked us, are prominent Democrats listening to you, like Jamie Raskin and Pete Buttigieg and AOC? And also, are you working with any Minnesota Democratic leaders who are working with you on messaging?
Yeah. So what I would say is we're getting this around as fast as we can. And we're in touch with the particular Democrats that you mentioned.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. And then what was the rest of the question? I mean, this is the challenge. Like, there are calcified ways that people are accustomed to speaking, especially about these things. And there has been sort of a prevailing wisdom that we should just say like blandly inoffensive things that don't call out, for example, the fact that like all of this is really an attack on Black voters, especially as you know, what went down in Alabama, what went down in Louisiana, what will soon be public, I'm sorry to say, about Ohio. I will not say more, but you will find out soon. Um, yeah, and not saying those things like you can't solve a problem you're not willing to talk about.
I think
Right.
too, just to jump in before the next question, that the what we've been thinking about and the reason that we asked you to come here and are so appreciative that you did is because we know all of us are it's everyone's job to follow the advice around how we talk about these things. It's not just the job of politicians. And so for everybody, especially as we're starting this election season leading up to the midterms, we all want to like build our muscles and learn how to talk with our friends and families and neighbors and the people in our apartment building about what's coming up. So
Yep. So Neil has a more technical question. Curious to find out what the response rate was in the polling of those likely to vote.
Good question. So I didn't just present one survey, I presented across, I mean, at least 8 different surveys because we're always rechecking and rechecking. We're in the field every 2 weeks. Um, I would have to look and I would have to look. I mean, it's just generally always between like, I think the lowest I've ever seen in a survey is like 80. Um, yeah, but it's usually 90. I mean, that's just, I think I'm answering, I think I'm understanding what percent of people were like, I'm going to vote. Is that right?
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that was the question.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just would not put a lot of stake in that question
Mhm.
anywhere ever.
Well, this is very cheerful.
I mean, it is cheerful. People want to do something about this. And I
Hmm.
realized folks were saying I was going really fast. I was going really fast. Um, yeah, it's pretty straightforward. They want to keep people from voting, keep votes from counting so they can seize and hold
Hmm.
power. Another way of saying this is they lose, they lie, they lash out. There they go again.
Yep.
Like
So-
they're not even waiting to lose
Yeah,
this time around. They know people don't want them, and so they want to pick their voters. But in Minnesota, we
exactly.
believe voters pick our leaders. Our leaders do not pick their voters. That's it.
Hmm. Jordan, your hands up.
Yes, another good question from Julie in the chat. how should we talk to our reps about this data, or how should we work? How should we take your data and work with our reps on this data, or
Yeah,
let
I
them
mean,
know?
first of all, give them I put it in the chat, give them the hands off our vote guide. Um, it's on a bit.ly, try to make it easier. Um, and I think, they have the opportunity to electoralize this election, if that makes sense as a phrase. What I mean is, in the same way that the right makes the Supreme Court a reason you should go vote, or abortion a reason, they've electoralized those issues. They've turned those issues into motivators for their base to want to go vote. That's what I mean by electoralize the election. Um,
Yeah.
and, another thing we've been experimenting with, and I think that this is especially important or potentially resonant in Minnesota, is your vote is your ice whistle, blow it. Your vote is your Supreme Court, remake it. Your vote is your healthcare premium, lower it. Your vote is your X, comma, Y. Like, especially because we want to say fewer things and say them more often.
Hmm.
And so a refrain that people can repeat, and all of those phrases are C3, right? Like your vote is your ice whistle, blow it. Your vote, like it's not vote for Democrats. Like there's no partisanness in that. But people need to feel an attachment back to something tangible. Like the vote is going to get them a thing that they desire. And so that's why we've been playing with that.
Yeah. So I'm going to read one more question and then we'll kind of wrap up this part. But is the voter enthusiasm factor one that your research explores?
I mean, in a way, yes and no. Like there's an entire very, very large literature on how you actually measure likelihood of turnout, and I could bore you with that. It is a big challenge. This is not like a us problem. This is like
Hmm.
this is like anybody who does anything in elections and voting. Um, there is a predictable pattern to midterm elections, as I'm sure you know, which is that the incumbent party takes a shellacking because their voters are kind of and the opposite voters, the voters of the out of power party, are very energized. Obviously, that is the phenomenon that we have seen in these special elections. That is our expectation again. Barring people really being kept from voting. But that said, it is also a reality. I don't think I need to tell this group that it's not just Republicans who are wildly unpopular, Democrats are wildly unpopular. And so this election is going to be about people voting against MAGA, not for Democrats, with exceptions.
Hmm.
And
Jordan, do you still have your hand up from the last? Oh,
I,
I'm sorry, I didn't
I
mean.
do, I do. Um, but I want Anat to finish because she was just.
yeah, and that is why,
Sorry.
and also for C3 reasons for some of you, um, we want to do that. Your vote is your ice whistle, or somebody offered the idea of your vote is your Social Security benefit, collect it. Like, I mean, your vote is your concept verb, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. I think that's awesome.
Um,
Jordan, what was your other question?
uh, quick clarification for the audience. When you say C3, you're referring to the 501c3 rule that we can't endorse candidates. Is that what you're referring to?
Or do
Or
electioneering more
yeah, exactly.
broadly.
Electioneering. Yep. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry.
And then my question I think is allows us to close this up a little bit. Scott asked about where we can go to find your messaging resource and research and resources, and also do you have stuff to pitch in general in addition to that?
Oh, stuff to pitch. I don't even know what that would mean. Like, am I trying to sell you something? Definitely not.
Well,
Um,
just I mean your work, share your work and what you're
I see.
excited about.
Okay.
That's yeah.
So still, I'm typing it in here. This is the Freedom Over Fascism Toolkit. This is like the evergreen. If you bookmark that, that's where anything goes down, we add it there. So Robert's Court does something, there it is, whatever, you can see what's there.
Mhm.
Um, and then as far as so I have a Substack called Words to Win By, same as my podcast. Yeah, the podcast is old school. It is audio only from back when that was a thing, and I wish it were still a thing because why? Why does
Mhm.
everything have to have video? And every episode is about a campaign we won somewhere in the world. So spoiler alert, they all end happy. Um, there's a couple of episodes. The finale of season 3 is a little different. It's about economic messaging and where Democrats fell off the cliff on their economic messaging. But yeah, if you're into that, listen to it, rate it. It will help me. That's my shameless plug. Yes, rate the
Okay.
thing, write a review of it. It will help me. Yeah, Substack. I do these Substack lives with Mike Podhorzer on Wednesdays. You can find that on my thing or his. His thing is called Weekend Readings. If you want to get deep, deep into the nerd, Weekend Readings is where it's at. Yeah.
Great. Well, we appreciate you coming so much, and this is the perfect segue for us as we get start talking a little bit about what our strategies are as we move into our election uh, projects that we have planned. So this was a perfect way to segue into that. We really appreciate you coming.
Yeah, I'm happy to be with you. Thank you for the question about supporting my work. It's very kind. I never ask people to rate the podcast, so do that and that'll be it. Um,
Okay.
yeah, thank you for everything you're doing.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All
Appreciate you.
right. So I guess we need to bring the slide deck back up and we'll get to the next part.
Give me 1 second.
Right. I didn't talk earlier. For who those who don't know me, I'm Lisa. I'm one of the co-leaders of Indivisible Twin Cities, along with Rebecca.
It'll give you a
And we're
second
gonna,
to find the
yeah,
slide deck.
we're gonna get talking now a little bit about this, what our strategy is going forward. Some of you have already heard some of this. If you went to our all-member meeting at the Hook and Ladder, we kind of brought it out for the first time and showed people what we were thinking. Since then, we've had a more detailed session with some volunteers to go into a little bit more detail and dive a little deeper. We're not going to dive deep today because we don't have time, but we want to just bring you up to speed on where we are with our initiatives for what we are calling an election like no other. And I want to give credit to the wonderful Pam Costain for putting that somewhere on a slide. And today we were looking at it. We went, yes, we finally have our name for this project because we've all been wondering, well, what should we really call this? We like this name. We're going to call it this going forward. An election like no other. Okay, next slide. Um, so the first strategy, and we're going to have, I think, let's see, Larry, you're going to talk a little bit about this for us. So if you could just jump on in here and unmute yourself and tell everybody about what we're doing with our campaign side of the strategy.
Yeah, one of the greatest strengths that Indivisible has is Indivisible Twin Cities has is a large base of um, very concerned pro-democracy folks that want to help make sure we maintain our democracy. And so we are involved in a campaign right now to reach out to that base, to the thousands of people that get the newsletter and are on the social media, um, to try to involve them uh, directly as volunteers in campaigns. We're not coordinating with campaigns on this. We are simply bringing out people to be volunteers and training them, and then they will be able to work with the campaigns on their own, separate from us as an organization. And we're hoping that we can uh, raise maybe maybe 300 volunteers this way that we think will make a significant difference. The slide tells you kind of the campaigns we're focused on at this point, and our first focus is Peggy's campaign because she has a primary on August 11th. if you are on this call and are interested in this program and have not yet been involved in it, please, please what, Lisa? How do we connect them?
Just send an email to info@indivisible-twin-cities.org and tell us that you're interested in the campaign task force, and we'll send it to the right people.
Okay.
You have anything else to say on this one, Larry?
I don't. Is there something that did not get
Yeah,
said?
well, I just want to point out one thing that we are going to be looking at is we usually adopt candidates from some districts around the state, usually closer to the Twin Cities, since most of us here in the Twin Cities live in very safely blue areas. And so we're working on that right now with other indivisible groups that within the Twin Cities area to kind of decide what are those legislative districts going to be that we'll be trying to adopt and help their campaign. So more to come on that, hopefully pretty soon.
I would also add to this topic that our overall goals, really the reason that we are working to elect candidates, if it's not obvious, is that we want to increase the majorities in the Minnesota legislature so that we have a solid trifecta in the Minnesota legislature specifically, so that maybe we can get some work done. The last couple of sessions have been sort of painful in that regard. We want to do what we can to help flip the U.S. House also. So if there's a seat or two in Minnesota or three currently held by Republicans, and there are some great candidates running against them, even though they're not Twin Cities based. So, for example, CD1 or CD8 are in Greater Minnesota. There are still some things that we can do as Indivisible Twin Cities volunteers, either from the metro area, or we can make trips to those areas. So we want to do our part to increase the win back the U.S. House and increase our majorities in the Minnesota legislature.
That's right. We want a trifecta in Minnesota. We need a trifecta again.
We really do. Yep.
Okay. So let's go to the next one on, we're going to talk a little bit about election defense, and I think Stephen's going to talk about this for a minute or two.
Thanks so much, Lisa. And this presentation from Anat was very much aligned with what Indivisible Twin Cities is pursuing with respect to election defense and election promotion. So what we're really after with election defense, and it's very complementary to what Larry's talking about in terms of supporting particular candidacies, we really want to get out there and push back against the the momentum of the authoritarian administration that we're all laboring under, that is suppressing the vote, that is opposing the opportunity or the freedom to vote, and to encourage people to be out as engaged in not just the electoral process, but in the political process. So what we're looking at is a collection of work streams that are really designed to lift up the excitement, enthusiasm about the elections for this coming midterm. And they include a variety of work streams, including voter engagement that's not candidate specific, the way Larry's work is focused on, but is really about engaging voters in the process to think about their role as engaged citizens and voters in our democracy. There's also a track that is going to focus on mobilizing and pressing our both big businesses and small businesses to step out in an affirmative way in favor of and in support of the electoral process that we're in the midst of this year. There's also a track where we're going to be assembling county-based teams that will focus on the election process in each county where elections are typically managed and facilitated and supported and so forth. And we want a collection of constituents from each of the counties to both observe and support, but also hold our elected officials and staff accountable for doing the right thing in those jurisdictions. We're going to be monitoring the conditions around the voting environment, and if there are opposition or obstacles presented for people placing their votes, we want to provide mobilized teams to conduct election protection activities. We will have a specific focus on the state fair. We'll probably need a couple of hundred volunteers for that very important statewide celebration. So if you're interested in being out there, spreading the word about how important it is to get out and vote and exercise your franchise, we'll be looking for your involvement. And then lastly, the Minnesota Truth Council, many of you might be already involved in this, is collecting stories about the harms that have been done to our people, our communities, our neighbors, our institutions over the last 6 months by this administration, and telling the stories that are going to be hopefully embedded in policies and legislation that will be implemented once we achieve the electoral results that we hope to come November. So we do have, and I'll leave it, Lisa. I think you're going to come up with a couple of forward-looking steps and events that'll carry us forward.
Yes. Next slide, please. Jordan, there we go. Okay. So yeah, so this kind of leads us into, so what does all this mean and what are we going to do about it? We know that everybody, as we talk through these different things, and we went through that very quickly, it's not, oops, we went too far. Thank you. We have developed some training materials and some training that we can go through. First of all, we want as many of you as possible to attend the Intro to 2026 ITC election programs. This is going to go into a lot more detail of what we just went through in 2 slides. It will give you a much better understanding about how we hope to accomplish so many of these goals and how you can participate in that. So we're going to have 2 virtual sessions. One is this Saturday, starting at 11 o'clock, and then the next one will be on June 21st and in the evening. And I believe we're putting something in the chat so that people will know how to go to those. Is that true? Maybe.
I think the best thing is if people go to indivisibletwincities.org, and on the homepage, there's an events section, and you can RSVP easily from there.
Right. Thank you. And then the next training is a much more interactive workshop. It will be done in person and a little bit longer. How to talk to disengaged, disaffected, and new voters. Now, I want to make this point. This is not a mandatory thing, but we really think everybody would benefit from doing both of these trainings. So go to the intro training first, then come to the second one, the workshop about how to talk to these particular voters, and go through that training as well. So we're not like going to check names on a list or anything to make sure you did one before you did the other, but we do recommend that you do it that way. If you're interested in joining any of these volunteer teams on either one of these 2 tracks, because we need a ton of people and we want all of you to be involved. And as we've said before in other ways, is that by joining us in this effort, then you now officially are an organizer. And that's a really important a title for you to have, and we all need to have it and use it and be organizing our neighbors and our friends and our families and our uh, classmates and coworkers, whatever it is. So these two trainings we hope will help you get to a comfort level where you'll know how to have these conversations. And based on what Anat was just telling us of some of the ways that you word things and some of the phrases that you want to use instead of other phrases. So anyway, Pam's got her hand up, and I bet she wants to talk about the training.
No, actually, I don't. I think this is
Oh,
self-explanatory. A person asked whether or not these will be recorded because they can't make either of the dates, and yes, they will. And if there's any appetite for more in-person Zooms, we can do, or more Zooms, we can do that. But they will be, the first one will be recorded. I just want to assure people of that.
great. Great. Thank you. Yeah, and that's another good point is that if the demand exceeds what we have on this list, we'll add more. We want to train as many people as we possibly can. So if it looks like we're getting a lot of interest in this, we will most definitely add more training as we go forward. Does anybody else have anything they want to say on that, or are we good on
I
that?
have something, if you can go back one, just on the talking to disengaged, disaffected, and new voters. I mean, this is where what we all of what some of what we just learned from Anat, in addition to the training that's being planned by Pam, is these things are going to come together. And so whether we are doing one of the participating in one of the work streams around election defense, or we're working on a campaign, really all of us are going to be talking to voters or people or, just our neighbors. And some of these people are going to be disengaged, disaffected, or new. And we're not all comfortable doing that. And so it takes a little practice and it takes some training, and there are some techniques that make it easy and more effective. And so that's why we really believe that regardless of what you may sign up to do between now and the election, that this training will be useful, really for everybody. And I thought Anat said something that was really interesting. It was toward the beginning, and I'm probably going to rewatch her entire presentation. But it was like if the message doesn't get heard, then it's silent or something. Do y'all remember what she said? It was really interesting about it's why messaging is so important. It's if you aren't conscious about what you're saying, then people don't hear your messages, and then you're not getting your point across. So anyway, I'm all in on this stuff.
Kate has something.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that that phrase really stayed with me too, that it was, she said like that messaging is like a baton. It has to be passed hand to hand. And so if we're sending our message out on, whatever platform that way we're doing it, but we're not really connecting with another person. I mean, it's not, we can say stuff on social media that's good, but we have to really also own our messages and make sure that people actually hear them, people repeat them, that they're posting it. And like if we're putting it on Facebook, and if we're not, then it's a dead message. We're just talking into the wind. And I think that idea really that really resonated with me too.
Yeah, and Jackie said a message that nobody hears is not effective. That's what I was trying to say. So thank you, Jackie.
All right. Oh, I'm going to let Rebecca go through her inspirational speeches because she loves them so much.
I love doing this, just, finding things to wrap up on a positive note. And I think that these two quotes reflect what we're trying to do right here, right now. I'm no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I am changing the things I cannot accept. Angela Davis said that. And then my favorite author of all is Rebecca Solnit, who said, waiting until everything looks feasible is too long to wait. That really struck.
Yes.
It really struck me because if you wait for all the stars to align, it's too late.
Mhm.
So we're gonna try to make things happen. Um,
So another thing Anat said that that I was feeling because it was that people were telling her, "Oh yes, I'm going to do something in October or November or what have you." And I had to laugh when she said that because we're there now. That's why we're holding these trainings. This is why we've developed these two strategies, is that the work starts right now. It doesn't start at the when the primary opens. It doesn't start in September when early voting opens. It starts right now. And that is why we are just hammering this every chance we get, that we need you guys, we need everybody involved, and we all need to be working towards having our voices heard. And I love the way Anat described that, and we're going to definitely steal it and start putting it everywhere.
I
So,
can't figure out how to raise
okay.
my hand. Can I say
Oh,
something?
Oh,
sure,
sure.
go ahead.
I'm not new to the work, but recently new again to Minneapolis. I just moved back from Portland. And so I just went through the process of changing all my license and everything and registering to vote. And when you talk about the work starting now, that struck for me because I won't bore you with the details because it was details, but there were so many little ways. Like I had to go to the DMV 3 times in that day just to get things through because there was so much pushback and it was ridiculous. And then I was supposed to be registered to vote, but it's been over a month and it still says pending. So I'm gonna go and check again. But like people passing out cards or whatever you're doing, like help people understand that be vigilant if you're finding people like me who are just registering.
Yep. And that's one of the tracks that we have in our election defense is, to help people figure out like how do I register? What documentation do I need to bring? Anything like that could impact their ability to get registered so they can vote. So thank you for that. And I'm sorry that you go through anything that was problematic. But I think once you get all that taken care of, you'll find that voting in Minnesota is very easy. Okay. So I guess that's it. I think we had a great group of people here, and I hope everybody got something out of it. I know some of you were saying that Anat talks very fast, and she does, but you're going to get the slides. We've recorded this so you can replay it if you want to and share it with others. So hopefully you'll get all the information you need if you go back through the materials. But we do appreciate you all coming, and we hope that you're going to join us as we go forward with the elections. We want to see you.
We sure do. Thanks,
All right.
everyone.
Thank you. Bye.